A rinky-tinky-tinky. Welcome to the Comedy Slab. I have reason to believe this is episode 210, which means we're 10% of the way to our 300th anniversary. Wow. Don't want to wish your life away, do you? It's too short as it is.
It was quite a judicial start there, wasn't it? Didn't it? I have reason to believe you're in possession of a comedy slab.
In a westerly direction. Yes. Ed, I observed. Anyway, it's lovely to have you along. I am Adrian Lacey in the southeast of England. He is in the verdant, harvested pastures. Actually, they're not verdant, they're dry as a bone, rag and bone, but we'll get to that in a moment. He is Shane O'Connor in the Midlands. Anyway, we are the Comedy Slab. We put a different comedy, be it TV, radio, internet, digital, whatever, on the notional slab of comedy to prod it about a bit, get our scalpels out, that's not a euphemism, and see what we make of it. Still gets a snort after all these weeks. Just before we slip and sashay into our slabbing of Steptoe Son, that's what we're putting on the slab this week, episode 3, I'll try that again, series 3, episode 7, which is in itself is unusual. We'll get to that in just a moment. Bit of a classic that we'd overlooked these past 209 previous episodes of The Slab. It's not quite comedy news this week, but it is a coincidence. I may have made reference to it previously. You're quite a brute, aren't you, Shane? But then I knew that when I signed up to work with you. You've held me off for 3 weeks. You haven't let me tell this coincidence, which is, I mean, it's not even like it's nothing to do with anything. It was actually to do with the show we put on the slab 3 weeks ago.
Can I just say, it wasn't like that though. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, you make it.
That's
sound,
not your recollection.
I mean, you make it sound like I'm in charge, which
I'm in charge,
which I think everybody realises what the real narrative is there. And secondly, like you listen to me anyway. Let's be honest.
Sorry, what's that?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Well, fair dues, but I'm going to tell it this week if it kills me.
Fair dues all round.
Hopefully it won't.
Yeah.
Fair dues. So this is a coincidence told to me all of 3 or 4 weeks ago by my writer friend, Rich, or Richard, and he was working, he co-writes some of the time with... he did for years. I think they're doing less together now. But he was co-writing something, I think with his writing partner, Bev Doyle, but I might be wrong on that. Oh, actually, no, the anecdote itself relates to a couple of years back when they were writing together. So get it right, Adrian. Anyway, as you can tell, I've rehearsed this and got it word for word perfect now. And he and I were out walking near his home. We'd just gone for just a little afternoon stroll like you do when you reach a certain age. And he is a professional screenwriter, has been 25 or so years. And he did some work with his co-writer on a reworking of Jungle Book for the BBC and Pathé. I didn't know Pathé were sort of in that sort of space, but they are. And it was going to be using a technique which, if anyone's seen the BBC series Serengeti, it's using real natural history footage, real footage of real animals. But there's a certain degree of manipulation, that knowingly for the viewer, and apart from anything else, the way it's edited. So it's going to be that sort of format. But for whatever reason, they took it to the BBC and Pathé, and whoever they were dealing with said, oh, OK, thanks very much for your work on that. And actually, they were then going to pass it on, and indeed did pass it on, to Dick Clement and Ian Lefrene, would you believe? And so then they needed to keep each other in the loop and get them up to speed. So my friend Rich emailed Dick Clement and Ian Lefrene, and we know they've been in the States for years. So he said he was emailing them in Hollywood. And he just had his letterhead and all of that. And, this is what we've done. Good luck with it. All passed over perfectly amicably because, it's a professional operation and it was all understood that was the way it was going to work. Sadly, as it happens, the project didn't get finished. But in the process, Dick Clement took a look at Richard's address, which is in Westcliff-on-Sea, if anyone knows the sort of Essex coast near Southend-on-Sea, where my nan used to live, actually. And the road that Rich lives in, no word of a lie, Dick Clement wrote back and said, I was raised in that road.
Oh, wow.
Sutton Court Road, I think it is, off the top of my head, in Westcliff, in Essex. And you could tell my friend's a professional writer with immaculate timing. As we were coming to the end of our walk going to his house, he said, and that is the house. Perfect timing. He told the story, and like the punchline was, and that's where Dick Clement was raised.
Oh, wow.
And it was literally no more than 10 doors down from where Rich has been living the last 20 years.
And did you
did
you say to him, yes? And then when he said what, say, and where's Dick Clement? Come on, this is useless.
Can you produce him out of
that? Half a story. What's the matter with you? And he's,
I'm sorry.
And he's here tonight. Here he is, Dick Clement joining us on the walk.
Yes, that would have been the ultimate punchline.
Isn't that incredible, though? Not least the fact that they were doing business together, but the fact that they were raised, or they had connections to that road. He was raised and he lived in that road, and that they're both writers, and that they're both writers for film and TV. I mean,
yeah, that's what are the chances
mad,
of that?
Isn't it? Mad, absolutely mad. Yeah,
fantastic. So Dick couldn't resist referring to it, of course. The other thing is that Rich was living next door to someone up until recently, I think, whose surname was Clement, and there was even a suggestion that she was part of the same family.
Oh, okay.
He's not been able to establish that. I think she might have moved by now.
And don't tell me there's no bloody blue plaque on the house, is there? I'm guessing.
Well, you don't want a blue plaque.
You have to be dead.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
So don't wish for your own blue plaque just yet.
That's probably why they're not answering my emails, to be honest with you. I do.
I think that's why they say careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's in place of comedy news, or a different form of comedy news. I'd like to share that with you in our listening audience.
Do you know, I often wonder, because we always have a bit of a meander before we get to the main meat and two veg of the...
Don't we just?
Yeah, which is we quite like, because it's nice, we have a chat, and that's the whole idea of the podcast, is two blokes chatting about something that they both, enjoy, and something they've got in common, and something they're both passionate about. But very often I see, and it only seems to be on YouTube, very often, because I kind of curate the YouTube side of things, and very often I see comments, skipped the first 10 minutes in a kind of terse way. And I think that's the best bit, mate. What's the matter with you? We really enjoy that bit. But yeah, I often wonder whether...
I don't take offence to that, as long as they feature as a in our ratings as a download or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I don't take offence to anything that you can't these days, can you? I mean, I think we're all kind of past that now, really. But yeah, I just...
Well, you obviously aren't on Twitter that much.
I know, I don't. I'm not on anything that much.
Nobody takes offence there, do they? What could possibly go wrong?
I'm on paracetamol quite a bit, but that's it's just life, modern life, isn't it? No, I often wonder whether, when we do, because I do really quite enjoy this bit, because it's nice, it's very, kind of like we just have a chat about whatever we're seeing and whatever we're hearing or whatever. I mean, the whole podcast is like that. But yeah, I just kind of think it's curious that they're kind of, oh, come on, get to the bit. Do you like it or not?
Get to the point. Well, maybe I will use their quotes against you and say, let's get to the meat of the show now. So welcome to those of you who've gone and fast forwarded the last 10 minutes.
Very rude.
You've missed a fantastic coincidence, which gives me, as a writer, great hope that I can get away with some of the coincidences I've stuffed into my first novel, but that's another story, literally. Right, so to the matter in hand, or in Slab. It is, as I was saying, Steptoe Son, Series 3, Episode 7. Got to ask you, although I suspect I know the answer here, given your general... demeanour towards Galton and Simpson writing, which this, of course, is another example of. What was your feeling when I put Steptoe Son on the Slab for this week? Your homework last week.
Well, I had heard of it. I was aware.
You'd read up on it.
I was aware there was a comedy program called Steptoe and Son. I wasn't too sure what it was about. I understand it's about a man called Steptoe and his son, which was rather of a shocker. I can't tell you the shocker that came to me. I mean, this is. Do you know, it did whack me in the face like a wet kipper that we hadn't done it. It was a bit like the Python moment, wasn't it, when we kind of went, well, yeah, we haven't done Python.
Sometimes they're so obvious, it's almost you can't see it because it's so huge.
Yeah.
The elephant in the room or whatever it is. So, safe to say you were welcoming of the idea.
Yeah, although there is that kind of, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, hang on a second, I grew up on the colour version from about 19...
I think 70 to 74, the colour ones. I thought.
Yeah, I was going to say about 90 because I was born in 66. So, 70 is about starting to when I was kind of getting an interest in comedy and kind of understanding it on a, whatever level you understand it on at that age. So, yeah, I was kind of thinking, ooh, is it going to be all a bit grim in black and white and before that, because I've seen them, but I've not really studied them. So, yeah, it's an intriguing one, isn't it, nonetheless, anyway.
And just on that, before I forget, it's a surprise to me to read now that there was a gap between... So the first run was 62 to 65. There's a gap of 5 years getting on for, from 65 to 70 when it wasn't on. And I could have sworn there was a late 60s run, but obviously not.
And you do feel that when you look at the works now together, they just feel like they just ran every week and...
Yeah, just a black and white, and then, of course, the technology changed.
Yeah.
But half a decade. Wow, there may be more surprises to follow. So we're going to have the first of 2 audio clips in just a mo. Let me lead into that. I should say the title of this particular episode is The Lodger. And I thought I was originally going to take a leaf out of Monsieur Lee O'Connor's book about getting a clip at the beginning of the show, but actually that wasn't the best place to get the setup of why they're going to take in a lodger. Mini spoiler alert, but not altogether as surprising. Anyway, so it's a two-hander, this. The only other people we see, I don't think anyone speaks. There is some exterior film stuff. Neither are you going to see it nor hear it, because actually that's pure visuals and a bit of music, but that's not going to tell you an awful lot. So both of my clips are just Harry H. Corbett and Wilfred Bramble, not necessarily in that order, as Son and Steptoe, I suppose. That is in that order. And we'll get on to the actors, I guess, after we've heard this first clip. So, as so much of all the series we are in their actual workplace, which is also, as it were, living over the shop. They are rag and bone men, father and son, of course, and they are, even by their own personal standards, falling on hard times. And I get the sense there's some passing reference as if the economy, which wasn't wonderful in the 60s anyway, was going through, even by 60s standards, a bit of a blue patch. So it might have been extra topical in that sense. And sadly, it looks like being topical again with our own straitened times, both currently and sadly to come. Anyway, so what else do you need to know? Wilfred Bramble is the father. Harry H. Corbett is the son. So Albert is the father. Harold is the son. But we start actually with Harry H. Corbett, the son. And there is a bit of a visual I need to explain just quickly, which is that the father's sort of put his head on top of his fist, a little bit like Rodin's The Thinker, or if you've got popular cultural references like us, like Brucey at the beginning of each show.
Oh, this is a moment for posterity. The birth of the Steptoe Empire. Oh, look at him. Oh, shrewd eyes. The majestic curve of that forehead. The most noble ragman of them all. Julius Steptoe. The golden age of Totting is about to begin. Can this merchant prince save us from destruction? It's coming. It's coming.
I've got it. We're taking a lodger.
My God, no! It's too much. I can't comprehend it. I mean, it's too big for small minds to take in. I need time. Take in a lodger.
You think it's a good idea then?
I think it's a diabolical idea.
Why?
I'm having strangers travelling over my house.
Not your house, it's my house.
Well, I live here as well.
Well, can you think of a better idea then? Come on. You've been taking a mickey. Let's hear from you.
Well...
Yeah. All them talk now ideas. Well, I've made up my mind. I've decided we take in a lodger.
We are not taking in a lodger. I mean, apart from anything else, we've only got 2 rooms, mine and yours.
Yeah, I thought about that. He can sleep in yours.
That's it, simple as that. That's his solution to everything. You take all the pain, I get all the gain. There's so much to go at here, isn't there? I was amazed actually what a treasure trove it was to listen to and to watch.
Yeah.
Shall I do a headline before?
Before we forget. A tabloid headline for new listeners, this is something we do each week. We're trying to get a grabby sort of headline that sums up how we feel about the show we've just put on the slab.
He wanted a gimmick and I relented.
Was it my idea? Oh, well,
yeah, you
I'll
would
take
let
that.
go.
Well, it's still going after 210 episodes.
Well, it's not worth arguing with, is it? That's why.
I like that.
I got two. I got one that was kind of a bit weaker. I thought I steptoed into the past and I liked it. Was the one.
Was that meant to be a Katie What's-It reference as well?
Well, yeah, that kind of
but
like tiptoed
devil.
and I was trying to get steptoed through the tulips. That didn't make sense.
Tiny Tim.
Yeah. So the other one was, it's like one of Albert's old cardigans, only better. I mean, I kind of settled right into this. It was just like putting on a pair of old comfy slippers, really. But I don't know whether you
didn't mean there were holes in the plot then?
No, holes in the cardigan, not holes in the... Oh, apologise for the traffic tonight. It's awful. And plus the fact I've got every window open because otherwise I'm going to melt. Yes. I just... it's a weird one because visually, and I think this is something you alluded to last week, visually, the black and white really does enhance the grubbiness and the tawdry nature of the shambles that they're living in. It's kind of, but and it's not that funny. It's not that jokey, is it? It's not a gaggy script. I mean, but you still kind of come away feeling upbeat about it. I don't know how that works.
It's amazing, and lines that were getting genuine laughs. They were. I mean, the pathos is just it's off the scale, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, and some would argue, I think if you were to do it now, I think some would say, a bit too much pathos, not enough, of the good old... I mean, the gags were there. There were gags there. But yeah, and very wordy, really wordy scripts, weren't they? I mean, real big bits to learn,
Oh, yeah. Well, the one word, if I had to sum it up, was theatrical, and I mean that as a huge compliment, because they're both really strong. They must have trodden the boards many a time. I mean, wasn't Harry H. Corbett down as the next Marlon Brando? Isn't that?
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit of a cliche, but I think a cliche because so many people seem to say it and believe it.
Oh, he was a massively serious actor, wasn't he? I mean, everything he did, he approached in complete and utter seriousness. I mean, because he was one of Joan Littlewood's protégés, wasn't he?
Was he? Right. Which was not so much a theatre company, more a sort of political project as well as as
Harry H. Corbett was. I mean, he was a very staunch Labour supporter.
Right. He must have loved those lines that Galton and Simpson gave him, presumably not for any coincidence, where he's being a real lefty.
Yeah, I mean, he was typecast in that sense, wasn't he? That he kind of... And I was going to say that the interesting thing about the pair of them is if you ever heard or saw them being interviewed, you quickly realised that they were playing off the end of the scale in terms of away from their personality, their true personality.
They're terribly posh, you were saying.
Both of them, yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? Wilfrid Bramble, I'm always on edge when he's acting because... He obviously struggled with lines. I don't think he had the confidence that Harry H. Corbett did. And you heard that clip that you chose there. I heard
one pause. And that led me on to the next thing, which was, I mean, of course, in the early days, they did sitcoms live. And I'm just wondering whether we're seeing we've actually slabbed a recording of what would have gone out live. It's perfectly possible.
Yes.
So, yeah, where do you go with it? I mean, it's incredibly strong performances, and they're giving it 150%, and you can hear that. You don't feel it as a strain, but you appreciate it that every line is sculpted and they're committed to.
Yeah.
There's nothing sort of down in their boots, not really bothered. Or we'll throw that line away. It's not going to get a laugh or whatever.
It's. I mean, the amount. It's the volume for me, the volume of work that they're learning and that they're getting into, and that they're not just reciting, obviously. But you kind of think and I'm not trying to be disparaging to different kinds of actors, but if they were soap actors, the modern day soap actors, for example, they probably in that one episode have learned kind of at least a month's worth of lines. You know, it's there's no room for anything else, is there? You know, it's like 100 miles an hour, just full of words. There's no thinking and kind of, you know. It was
it's just a bit of business washing up or something.
I'm acting. You know, what do you do? You're not doing anything. No, I'm blooming acting. That's what I'm doing. Doing a bit of business, whatever. But it's just incredible.
And it would have been, as was the normal run of things when I was working at TV Centre, which I'm assuming this was made there. That each week it would have been a different episode, and given the volume of words, as you're saying, just a two-hander, give or take, possibly the odd, or relatively small part in other weeks. That you would live, breathe, and sleep that episode for that week, wouldn't you?
You'd have to, wouldn't you? I can't think of any other way that you do it, really. And like I say, I do kind of feel that Wilfrid Bramble was always on, and you hear it in the radio series as well, which kind of ran around the same times. That he was really on the edge of his capacity, I felt, and that he would fluff 3 or 4 times minimum. You know, during the episode. I mean, but having said that, I mean, as you say, it's a two-hander. There's 2 of them. They don't for 11 minutes. The first 11 minutes, they don't actually even leave the room. They're in the same room until they actually kind of get up and walk into the hallway for a bit of business that they do there. And you kind of think, that's like 11 minutes straight talking, acting. The concentration must have been immense, mustn't it, really? Must have been immense.
Absolutely. And they were, as I say, utterly absorbed in their characters. And they haven't given themselves an easy ride in that... They created such, I'm sure it was a group effort and with the writers and director and so on, but they created complex characters that needed the vocal range, each of them. I mean, I like to think I can do an impersonation of Harry H. Corbett in that role, but not that I'm even 5% an impersonator, but even the thing I kid myself I'm impersonating is only 5% of the character as it is in terms of the vocal range, the lights and shades, the sculpted vowels, and and just and taking roles within a role. You know, the beginning of that clip that Harold is sort of declaiming, isn't it? It's a classic sort of oratory within the character. Behold here, what do we have? That kind of thing. Although I obviously can't do justice to it, but then we have to touch on the writing, don't we? Because the richness of the writing, it just makes them take flight, doesn't it? They can't throw away lines like that. There are bits that are, where you come bumping down to earth, but deliberately, because suddenly you're back in the room, as it were. Yeah. But when it takes flight, it's for me, modern day Shakespeare, really. Not that you're necessarily a fan of his. You might actually think it's superior to Shakespeare, but it's certainly up there with the best of theatrical writing of its time. And will stand the test of time. I always think, and I think I've said this before when we've slabbed some other stuff, and I always think that one of the secrets, one of the strengths of Galton and Simpson has always, to me, been that they, and this is where it gives it a truth, is that they kind of get inside the character. You know, when they're writing for Hancock, Hancock never says anything that you think, well, Hancock wouldn't say that. He wouldn't react like that. Everything is so nailed down. That's what the character would do. That's how he talks. That's his turn of phrase. That's the kind of attitude he's got to things. And I think they do this exactly the same. And maybe it helps because there's 2 of them, and maybe one took, the Harold role, and the other one took the Albert role, and put the words into the mouth of the. But it's so true, isn't it, and so consistent that they can't. You never think, well, that's a bit weird. He wouldn't say that.
And I think, and that's what's, to me, that's what's beautiful about their writing is that they've always been able to do that, and they've always been able to put the right words into the mouth of the character. It's interesting because I read something somewhere and I thought this is one of the ways that writers, and I'm sure this is maybe something you've done, I don't know, that writers start to form the character that they're writing about, is that I saw somewhere and they referred to Albert as Albert Edward Ladysmith Steptoe. and I thought they'd obviously thought about this, the time that he'd grown up and about what was happening and all. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of think, it's
where's Ladysmith come from?
It's wasn't it an African campaign or something, or was it a general in an African campaign?
Right, a battle.
It's one of these, as Blackadder would say, it's one of these Umboto Gorge type things, isn't it? Where the pygmies came at them with sharpened fruit, and we managed to fend them off with a Gatling machine gun, that sort of thing. So I just thought it's just they kind of you form the character, and you kind of once the writers know who that is. It must be so much easier for the actor to be able to inhabit that space as well. Then,
I think I can just picture them, Galton and Simpson. One would be on the typewriter, and I could see them each taking a role, and almost those eureka moments. Yes, that's it. Quick, type it. What was it we said just then?
You were saying about the H, the Harry H. Corbett.
Oh yes, yeah.
Couple of funny things with that. I didn't realise, because you were saying, because Harry Corbett was the sooty guy. He actually had to change it because of him, because he was already working and he was already established, and
that would be equity.
In equity, yes.
Presumably. Yeah.
So he had to put an H, and he put an H in. And when they interviewed him and said, "What does the H stand for?" he used to go, "Anything." Which I just love.
That's a good comeback.
But the best story that I found about this was that obviously because he was great friends with Harold Wilson, and he wanted to give Harry H. Corbett an OBE, and for some reason when they did all the paperwork they forgot to put the H in the middle, and he went to the sooty man.
No. I suppose you can't take it back after that. It's too embarrassing.
No, but both were. I think it's in '76. Both got the honour on the 1st of January. They realised the mistake that they made. And then, So Harry Corbett got an OBE for no other reason.
He wasn't meant to. Brilliant.
I love it.
Now, we must say, firstly, contractually or legally, we must say it's a BBC production. In the good old simple days, like Police Squad last week, that was...
just Paramount, wasn't it? I think
Paramount, wasn't it? Yes. Before they had 5 different companies. I should say there is strong language in this particular episode, but it's actually racist language that would not be acceptable today, and I'm not even going to use it, but I'll just say the W word.
Yeah, it's quite shocking, wasn't it, really?
Totally shocking. But more than that, it's not just once. It's almost like they're digging into it.
Yeah.
Very much of its time. But did you sit there like me, slack-jawed? And when it came through again and again, it was just unbelievable.
I did kind of wonder what was going on with it, really. Like you, it was almost like gratuitously being used. And it was quite out of place because despite the fact that this ran through the 70s, it was never particularly well known for having any racial undertones or overtones, did it, really, as far as I'm aware?
No, it's not like Warren Mitchell.
Alf Garney, absolutely.
That was a different story, where they were trying to make the point, an anti-racist point, through his ignorance, really. But this you couldn't excuse in that way, could you?
I didn't really kind of know where they were going with it either, really. It didn't kind of go anywhere. It was very odd. It was a very odd situation.
Anyway, I think it's high time for the second and final, sadly, of our 2 audio clips. And this time, if you're wondering who Hercules is, he's their horse. Just to fast forward, because this comes from quite a bit later in the show, very much towards the end, actually, but I thought it was a good dramatic point to come back you could say, is it the sort of move from Act 2 into Act 3? It's debatable. But anyway, Hercules, you'll hear it referred to, he's the horse. By the way, do you know the name of the music? We should touch on that before I forget. Mr. Shanester.
The theme music?
Yeah. It's actually got a name, and it's not Steptoe Son.
It's Ron Grainer, isn't it? Is it Ron Grainer?
It is Ron Grainer, who also wrote...
He wrote for Thunderbirds.
Doctor Who theme, I think, was his.
Okay.
Obviously, it was a radiophonic workshop. I've, in the past, mistakenly thought it was Delia Derbyshire who was the head honcho or bigwig at BBC Radiophonic Workshop. But she realised it in electronic sound. But I think Ron Grainer wrote it. Anyway, it's called Old Ned, the theme tune.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
So, shame, Hercules was a bit hurt that he wasn't mentioned in the name of the theme tune. It is so singable. It's insanely hooky, isn't it?
Oh,
once you've heard it.
Brilliant.
Anyway, so that's the reference to Hercules here. Essentially, our son, the prodigal son, you might say, he's gone to make space for the lodger. Supposedly, and he's found himself a trade, which we'll hear, and I think it's explained here. Certainly, we get the further explanation of it, and he's sort of come back to some extent, although he's trying to mask it. He's come back with his tail between his legs, and interrupted a fish and chip supper with his dad sitting alone at the table.
How's Hercules?
Fine. He misses you, I think. He keeps looking round. He bumped into 2 buses yesterday. Harold.
Yes?
Why don't you come back?
What, me? Come back here?
Yeah.
Well, give up my job?
Yeah, let's start again.
Oh, wait a minute, Dad. I mean, oh my goodness. I I don't think I can leave them not right in the middle of a campaign. I mean, I don't think it would be fair to them, Dad. It wouldn't be ethical. Oh, it'd get me a terribly bad name in the advertising business.
Harold, please listen to me.
Yeah, but you see, I can't just decide just like that. You see, I would have to speak to CJ. He is my associate. These things do take time. I mean, you see, they are relying upon me for a new angle on this thing. So they need me.
Harold, I saw you in the sandwich boards yesterday.
See, that would take some explaining nowadays, wouldn't it? Because I saw you in the sandwich boards. People think, was that a cafe? But of course he was, and it's a strange way of writing it, really, because I thought I saw you in the high street wearing sandwich boards. Rather than saw you in the sandwich board. But yeah, it's just this lovely idea that he's in advertising, and then it turns out that he's actually got sandwich boards and he's walking up and down just advertising something. CJ is quite an interesting thing, isn't it? Cause
what do you think? Do you think that inspired David Nobbs with Reggie Perry?
I don't know. And again, another writer that I had the good fortune to interview. Sadly, another one sadly no longer with us. But I don't know. I don't know whether... Yeah, I mean, even subliminally, maybe that kind of sunk in one day and he thought, oh, yeah, CJ, I didn't get where I am today. Maybe that was a common thing that people in managerial positions use their initials.
It does sound what might then have been what they could have called a trendy hip thing to do in the advertising world, which always likes to think it's ahead of the curve in terms of fashion.
Yeah.
I've remembered why I chose this episode, and it's a bit bizarre and a bit selfish, but we could have gone with any of them, couldn't we? But I did particularly want something from the 60s in black and white for extra misery. You can even hear the black and white, can't you, dear listener? It was that this would have been aired, according to my notes, on the 18th of February 1964.
Right.
And do you have any notion what a big, in terms of pop culture, what had happened in around 10 days before that?
Is it to do with the Beatles?
It is very much to do with the Beatles.
Was it their What's It performance?
I think it was their What's It performance, as it became known.
The
Cheesy
Palladium.
What's
The Palladium.
Not Palladium, wrong side of the pond, darling.
Oh, Shea Stadium.
Not Shea Stadium, that was 65, I believe.
Oh.
I'll give you one more go, and is it on Broadway?
Is it Bernie's Hot Dogs and Burgers?
The very same. No, Ed
Sullivan.
Sullivan, yes, which was 9th February 1964 there, mate.
Well, I got there with a bit of help.
Yes, and that's been living with me for the last couple of years as I've been writing the book that I keep banging on about. So it's burnt into my skull.
Oh, wow.
But 73 million Americans, that's another stat, burnt into my skull. 73 Americans watched that night.
73 Americans?
When there was 73 million.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say.
Yeah, 73. Well, they were very important ones.
Yes.
And they enjoyed it. When you think, the Fabs representing Britain, the other side of the pond, and whinging Poms, as we became known down under, because we must mention, must we not, and I'm sure you'll be across this, that there was a Peel down under. Do you know, did you know that the pair, Messrs Bramble and Corbett, went on a tour of Australia?
Yeah, I think they said 4 words to each other, didn't they, in the entire...
It had all gone rather pear-shaped by then, hadn't it?
Yeah, I mean, their politics was very much diametrically opposed, wasn't it? I think, we said how left-wing Harry H. Corbett was, and Wilfrid Bramble was very much not of that ilk.
So it's not just his character then, Wilfrid Bramble's Albert.
No, they were very, very opposed. Yeah, and I mean, that was the thing, wasn't it? Because Hancock, with Hancock, that's where he committed suicide, wasn't it? In Australia.
Yeah. So.
That was the thing, wasn't it? At the time that they would go and they'd do a tour down under, and I think Morecambe and Wise did a tour of Australia, didn't they, as well?
Did they? I didn't know about that. But Dave Allen made his name down there, I think, and he was on the same bill as the Beatles sometimes. I'm not sure if that was necessarily on Australia, but gave you a sense of what variety meant then. It really did mean variety, having a comic on the same bill as what became the biggest pop group ever.
And you think, the other thing is as well, a journey to Australia in 1964 would not be the journey to Australia. I mean, the journey to Australia now is as bad as it can be if you're stuck on a plane.
I can't be bothered with it now. It's a tidy walk, I'll give you that.
It is, it certainly is. And your mate will get there and you go, and that's his house there. And you think, bloody hell, that was good timing. We've been on the road for 9 months. So
I think I might break the journey. But anyway, yes. And I heard, things got so bad that they ended up, it sounded like it was lowest common denominator. They ended up singing East End songs like My Old Man Said Follow the Van in Australia.
Terrible.
Like they weren't really understood as characters, and the sort of the tragicomic point that Galton and Simpson so richly made, and suddenly it's sort of cheapened like they're East End geezers, and that's the end of it. They weren't even East End at all.
No.
Well, we can put off the, I was going to say the evil hour. I think it's going to be a very happy hour. The drinks are on me, half price. It can't be a miserly figure from your good self. It's just how generous is generous.
No, you're quite right. I couldn't be miserable at this one. Have we ever given anything a 5? I can't remember whether I've given anything a 5.
I think Blackadder, it's the only time we've both given something 5.
Right.
Is that what you're going for?
No, I was going to give it a 4.5, but
you little tea.
Only because it is. I don't know. Am I being unfair saying this? I kind of feel it's a bit creaky now.
Because that's a tricky one, but I suppose we have to react to how we feel about it in the moment, don't we?
Yeah.
Rather than look at it in the great context of history.
Yeah, it is 4.5, 5. For me, I don't. It's just.
You have got to make up your mind, though.
I'm going to give it a 5.
Oh.
It is part of the comedy DNA, isn't it? If you were to say, what are the classics, it'd have to be in the top 10, wouldn't it? Don't you think?
Oof, you're forcing my hand now. It'd certainly be up there. I don't know about top 10 because I haven't actually ever sat down to do it. But do you mean the agreed classics or my personal classics, which there would be an overlap, definitely.
I don't know. I know I've said it. I don't know. No, I'm going to stick with 5. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. Well, I think it's. I mean, the two guys, so well cast, so well suited. The writing is so good. The story, the plot line is so strong. I don't. Yeah, it's a 5 from me. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be just half a notch down at 4.5. It is so close to being there. All the things I've said, the strength of the performances, the theatricality, and the way, actors were never afraid in those more stagey days of belting out lines, whereas now it's, I will sound like an elderly person, but so be it. I don't think enough work goes in our drama schools now, with some possible exceptions that I'd have to leave there, about encouraging actors to project. Even in TV, I think this proves that it's not a mistake to project in a TV context with the right material and the right character, the right situation. Anyway, so 9.5, which ain't bad. How are we going to match that next week? Well, we probably won't match it next week, but we'll do our best to find something entertaining.
Well, I thought what I would do is go right up to date with something that's brand new. With the youngsters. The youngsters are going to take over. Yes, the youngsters are going to make us titter. I thought let's go the opposite end of the spectrum. And I happened across, I don't know if you're aware of this at all, I happened across a sketch show from BBC Wales. I'm not sure. I mean, this is the great thing about the iPlayer, isn't it? I'm not sure whether it goes out, how it all works and everything, but we certainly have access to it now. And it's called The Age of Outrage. And it's billed as, and I'm quoting here, a quizzical, sceptical and humorous look at modern life with a variety of sketches that poke fun at the frustrations of life in the digital age. So you can't get it any more up to date than that. It stars a cast that I know not of, apart from Dave Benson Phillips.
Oh, yes.
Whose name I know, and I don't know why I know him.
Well, I get always confused because there is a Dave Benson, isn't there, was or is a children's presenter.
Is that the same guy, Dave Benson Phillips? I think if you see his face, you might go, that's him. Yeah, I know who he is. It'll all come out in the wash next week anyway. But the bottom line is, it's called The Age of Outrage. I thought I'd just go for like the first episode. With the sketch show, it doesn't really matter, does it? You can dig it anywhere. But I just thought, well, just for ease, it is the first series, so it's 1-1. The Age of Outrage for next week.
Fantastic. I look forward to that. It's a while since we've slabbed a sketch show, I think, true to say. And as you're saying, as we speak, certainly for our UK audience, we'll find it on BBC iPlayer. Fantastique. Well, I am going to get some fish and chips and try and find some newspaper from 1964 to wrap them in. And also have an elephant's foot in the background and possibly 1 or 2 umbrellas coming out of it and bizarre masks on the wall or something, just to recreate a certain scene.
And I'm going to tidy the caravan, otherwise it will look like the set of Steptoe. In fact, it does already. It's a bit sad.
And we're going to play out to a modern version of Old Ned, otherwise known as our theme tune.